But in terms of open-mindedness, there's a big spectrum of how open people's mind are. It's one of the 5 personality traits that they can measure. And so I think people who are really open-minded are the ones that probably are more likely to come to psychedelic experiences, and people who are maybe more closed-minded. Do you think if they're right down that other end of the spectrum of closed-minded, one, they're probably not going to come to the psychedelic experience, but if they did, do you think they would have a different experience?
It's interesting because I know that they thought that openness was actually a stable personality trait. They thought personality in general was quite stable over time. But when people do engage in psychedelic use, openness is the one area that actually does tend to shift people. People tend, I mean, you can't say they definitely tend to become more open, but it's actually something that can shift and change the openness of people. I think if you develop a story that you're going to experience something traumatic and then that trauma might be re-traumatizing because you're going to have to relive it, you know, for a lot of people, they would be in avoidance of wanting to experience that. But often with the therapeutic support that people would have, definitely in more of the therapeutic model that's coming through in Australia, the therapist would work with them to kind of unpack some of those traumas and sort of be aware of what they are beforehand. So they already have, you know, maybe a sense of positive potential therapeutic change around them. And then when people do have either MDMA or psilocybin, I mean, a lot of people describe it as having like some people might refer to certain medicines as kind of like the mother or the grandmother, or you hear these words thrown around because it's like having a mentor in your head. So just because you're going to remember a trauma, it's likely that you're going to have this presence of love with you, or presence of warmth with you, or presence of a mentor with you when you're in that space. And sometimes that can be what leads you to unpack it in a healthy way, to witness the trauma but not necessarily be re-traumatized by it, but actually have the kind of threads of it unweaved in the perfect way so that you can develop a new story on that trauma. You can even just gain one new insight on that might be enough to kind of shift it or bring it up in conversation with your therapist afterwards. That allows for a whole nother trajectory to happen around the management of that trauma that effectively could lead them to the space where they can resolve it, they can release that emotion, they can step into, you know, forgiveness of themselves, of the person, of the environment, and on the highest level get to the point where they're really glad they went through that trauma because they learned so much and it made them really strong as a person. And I guess that's the ideal space that people do arrive when they have been through really challenging things.
I think that's a great explanation of what's happening therapeutically within the psychedelic experience, is that, and Gabor Mate says this, and I think he's spot on, is that our trauma is not necessarily what happened to us, but what's happening inside of us now because of what happened. In other words, you know, you have this traumatic event, but then you make a whole lot of meaning about that. You know, there's something wrong with me. I can't trust men. I can't trust women. It's more the repercussions of the traumatic event itself that live on long after the traumatic event that are causing the problems in your life today, often decades after the event. And it's when you can correct those stories or those limiting beliefs that you created as a result of your trauma. And like you say, you've got this mentor in your head, but also if you've got a trained facilitator there who knows to look for these meanings or interpretations or stories that we created, these beliefs that we decided about ourselves because of the things that happened to us, then you can recreate those beliefs, those stories. And in that's therapeutic, because when you recreate those beliefs, your life, and change your mind, change your life.